record. And I'm going to share my screen so you can see our questions. So we'll go through one at a time. Okay. Whoops, wrong screen. One thing, just be patient with technology. Let's try this again. Okay. Can we all see my screen? Great. Okay. So the first question we have, what we can do is people can raise their hand or physically raise their hand, use the function raise your hand, and we can go around as to answer this. So just to start, we've heard suggestions for innovative housing solutions, including live workspaces for artists and entrepreneurs in congregate housing, i.e. with shared kitchen spaces. Are these opportunities worth exploring? What concerns do you have? And just a reminder that artisan live work is now permitted in the industrial district, just to start off with. So again, if anyone, let me just make sure I can see everyone. Okay, Gordon? If you want to.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
This seems very restricted, our discussion. Can you comment on that? I have lots of ideas, and I attended this meeting with the hope of not being constrained to responding to specific questions.
Yeah, I mean, these are also just questions kind of to keep moving. So I'm also happy to take notes and hear on other topics as well. But right now we're focusing on needs. So that is for each breakout room, we have a different theme. So if you have another comment or a question to talk about for the needs for housing, you're welcome to share that now.
I'll pass for now, but hopefully there will be a time in the end where we can have a more general discussion, because this seems very constrained. I'll just pass. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Kristen, I see your hand is up.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
You see me?
I can see you also. Yes.
No.
Yes.
Oh. Well, I do have questions about this new bylaw that will allow artists live workspace in the industrial zone. And the main question that I have is everyone under the impression that this is only for artists, or is everyone looking at this as an opening for anybody, any residents to move into the industrial zone? Okay. And also, was I supposed to mention, I live at, I'm a tenant for precinct 13.
Okay, great. I think I took that down about your question about just the impression if these live workspaces are just for artists. I think Karen might have her hand up if you also want to mute and maybe have a comment for that.
I think the short answer is it is only artist live work that was included, but that we probably shouldn't go too deep down that rabbit hole so that we can have this broader conversation about housing models, other housing models as well.
Yep.
Because I think maybe the facilitators aren't that deeply familiar with what might have just happened in town meeting.
Yeah, and for full disclosure, I sponsored an amendment to Article 35. So I'm asking this question as someone who knows what the legal language is that got changed in the main article in the last 30 seconds of debate before it was passed. And I voted in favor of it. I was for it because I am for artists living in the industrial zone, but I kind of got the sense from the earlier presentation this evening that folks here are interpreting Article 35 as opening up residential to the industrial zone. Yeah, so that's why I asked the question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. I guess any other
Can
comment?
I just
Yep,
clarify?
Allie, yep.
My name's Allie. Kristen, hi.
Hi.
We can talk about this after. It is just so this doesn't lead to a tangent, and just so we can get back to discussing needs.
Yeah.
It is,
Oh, yeah.
It is artist live workspace only for the residential, and it's by special permit only. So that's.
I wanted to make. I was surprised that it was on the agenda, but as long as it is, I would like to say that there's a real need to make. Sorry, I'm walking. There's a real need to make the artist live workspace affordable. And so I'm interested in working on that. And I'm available to help push for that.
Okay.
If anybody has any ideas as to how I can help with that.
Great. That's
Thank you.
great to hear. Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Either Fiona, Elizabeth. Yep, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I think that it does make sense to pursue different options for housing rather than just sort of, you know, standard single family or two family or whatever. I specifically brought up, you know, congregate or co-housing models as a way to deal with, you know, some of us who are getting older and maybe don't want to live in a, you know, standard assisted living or a you know, independent living type facility, but would rather stay in Arlington, and you know, have a small community that is supportive of that kind of lifestyle. So yes is the answer.
Great.
For me.
Great. Thank you, Elizabeth. Anyone else want to, before we move on to the next question for needs? Okay, and if you do, feel free to shout out, but we'll move on to the second question, which is, to what extent is the community comfortable trading off commercial and industrial uses for residential uses, i.e. strictly residential buildings in commercial zones? Is mixed use commercial / residential a viable alternative? Anyone has a comment? Again, either raise your hand, use the raise hand function. I think Gordon.
Yes. A couple years ago, we had a well-intentioned and I think unfortunately turned down and withdrawn article called Article 16, which sought to do smart growth along our commercial corridors by providing benefits if you added more affordable housing, which is clearly an issue in town. And I hope that we address that again in the future. I think I'll leave it at that. I have lots more ideas, but I'll leave it at that so far.
Great, thank you, Gordon. I think Sarah has her hand up.
Hey, thanks. I don't have a great connection, so I'm going to try without video.
Okay.
I don't know if this is where this fits, but I know that I didn't grow up here, and I've lived in multiple other countries, and the countries that have been really, really enjoyable to live with, the cities or the towns that have been really enjoyable, have not had such rigid rules around, say, if you can open a local corner store or open it, like, you know, I think that when we talk about like now I live in Little Scotland, which is this little neighborhood within Arlington Heights. And, you know, we can walk down to Trader Joe's and we can get a quart of milk and come back. But there's lots of parts of Arlington that I hear from people and they say, like, I have to get in my car. And so I think that when we think about the whole picture is, can we soften in some areas to have what local neighborhoods might want. Maybe some neighborhood would like to have like a series of cafes and a little back alley, and maybe some other part of Arlington doesn't really want that. They want maybe more parks and more, and it's not that it's exclusive one or the other, but I just think that in really successful older like European cities and things like that, and I lived in Japan for a while, Japanese cities, is you have these very small, tiny corner places that aren't like Mass Ave, that are very much directed to the local walkable area. And, especially like I live in the Heights, it's really hilly. Nobody's going to want to walk back up with their big bag of groceries. So that I don't know if that fits there, but I think that this softening could allow even more kind of local ways of integrating mixed housing and less car use and neighborhoods that feel very together and socially stratified and things like that. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. I think, Kristen, you have your hand up? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I was just going to say to answer the question about whether or not I think it's a good idea to give up commercial and industrial real estate to make way for more residential, I would have to say no. And my reason is because it's really wonderful to be able to live and work in the same town. I am able to walk to work every day. I'm able to walk home from work every day. It is a much better way to live. And 93% of working Arlingtonians have to commute outside of the border to go to work. And I did that for many years. I think 11 years I did that while we were, while our business was in Malden. And we spent, I have to do the math again. I'd have to do the math again, but we spent hundreds and hundreds of hours commuting. On Route 16, and it's a terrible way to live. So I am in favor of not losing what little real estate that we have where our residents can work. And I'm hopeful that we can bring more business to Arlington, while at the same time allowing for more density. And I think there are ways to do that, but if you give up the commercial and the industrial real estate to make way for housing, the businesses will leave. And it would be a tragedy, in my opinion. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Kristen. Anyone else? Either again, raise your hand or use the raise your hand button, unmute. Yep, Karen?
I'm on the Housing Plan Implementation Committee, so I'm here more to listen than to speak. But I think this is an interesting question, particularly the part that talks about mixed use, because we don't have a lot of excess space. So I don't know if you have a separate question that we'll get to it, but I'm interested in how people feel about density and whether we have to increase density in some places to address our housing challenges, especially if we're not willing to give up industrial space. So I'm curious if people have thoughts about that. And Lena, if you're going to get to density at another point, feel free to push this off.
I think we might be talking about it maybe in another one of the breakout rooms, but if anyone does want to start that conversation now before moving on.
Obviously a very timely and active topic in town, and so I think might as well go there.
Yep. Okay, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I'd like to second what Kristen said. I've been here long enough in Arlington to see like a lot of our industrial and commercial areas, turn into residential. Residential is just so easy for developers. It's such a, it's something I think that we need to protect against, is having all of our commercial and industrial areas just turned into more residential because we have so little, and once we lose it, it's gone. We're never getting it back. So, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone? I'm just making sure people who have their hands up, Sarah and Kristen, do you have them up again, or are they just still up from the last time?
I don't, I thought it would.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. I'm just going to bring up, I think we probably might be running out of time for this breakout room, so I'm just going to pull up the last question. We've heard many concerns about the housing needs of older adults. Can you help us understand more about the genesis of these needs? Are they significantly different than needs of other types of households have? Again, okay, Gordon, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I talked to Jennifer Sus about this a little bit, and a member of one of the committees in town had expressed to her the fact that, so let's say you're an older citizen in town, and I qualify for that, unfortunately, for better or for worse, and you want to stay in town, but you want a nice place. So the fact that we could have housing that had maybe mixed use housing where the first floor was commercial with shops, second floor was maybe affordable, third floor was market, and the fourth floor would be higher end for the people who've cashed in on their real estate and decide they want to live in town on a smart growth aspect where they, for $1.10, they can get to the airport and fly where they want to go as a senior. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So unfortunately, I think we are being all switched right now to the next group. So you might have me, you might not, but thank you for participating, and you'll be switched to, I think, the challenges breakout next.
Okay, here we go.
Jeff, should I go back out? Can you?
Yes, Lena, or you know what, let me, do you have Alexis's cell phone number?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, text her and let her know that,
We're both in the same room.
right.
Okay.
In the meantime, hello again. Actually, we've got some, a few familiar faces from my last group. So welcome back. My name again is Jeff Davis with the Horsley Witten Group. And I don't know how you did in your last group, but how I've decided to handle.
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Yes, sorry about that. I was placed in a room with another facilitator. Technology. Okay. Let me share my screen quickly. My name is Lena. I work with Horsley Witten Group. I am a staff planner, and I'm looking forward to doing our chat. This is the housing challenges breakout room. Can everyone see my screen? Great. So how I think of doing this is I'm going to put the 3 questions that we have for challenges up on the screen. We do not need to stick to those 3 questions if you have other issues you want to bring up about the housing challenges, but feel free to respond to the questions as I read them out loud. I think to make this easier, since we do have a pretty big group, just raise your hand using either, if you have your camera on, raise your hand, or use the raise your hand button. So I can call on people so we can have a great discussion. Okay, so our questions are, almost all new development in Arlington requires a trade-off. Where physically can Arlington best support new housing development or redevelopment? How should the town prioritize the use of its housing trust fund and the housing related portion of its CPA funds? Direct support to the Arlington Housing Authority and nonprofit developers, financing for new construction, purchase of existing buildings to be deed restricted as affordable housing. And our last question, the current housing production plan acknowledges a lot of these challenges and includes a fairly comprehensive list of strategies to start tackling them. However, very few of these strategies have been implemented in the past 5 years. Help us understand what the challenges to implementation have been. So again, you can feel free to respond to any of these questions or all of them, or if you have a different housing challenge you want to bring up, this is the time. So again, either by raising your hand, I can call, okay, Rachel, if you want to unmute.
Hi, 1 sec, I'm gonna start the video.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Rachel Cravata. I currently live down at Menotomy Manor, which is Arlington's local housing authority, family housing. I wasn't able to get to the groups a couple weeks ago, but a couple things, there's a lot going on down here that needs to be addressed, and we could use support. So I feel like the local housing authority and Arlington obviously are 2 different entities, and they really need to come together. I don't feel like the community knows much about the social injustice that's going on down here. And if they did know in their own community what was going on, I think we would be able to get more support. So that I could go on and on about the challenges and the comprehensive list. I mean, we live in Menotomy Manor. I think out of all Massachusetts, we're 3 out of all the housing authorities that they didn't renovate, they didn't knock down and redo. So a lot of these places down here are inhabitable. So I feel like a lot of challenges revolve around that. And then tenants not speaking up because of fear of losing housing and things like that. So we could really use a lot of support down here. So I just wanted to introduce myself and voice some of my concerns. Thank you, Lena.
Thank you, Rachel. Okay, Beth.
Hi, thank you. I also had to turn off my video because I lost the audio.
No, that's completely fine.
Okay, so I just wanted to talk about number 2. I would like to see the Housing Trust Fund used for purchase of existing buildings absolutely to be deed restricted as affordable housing. And the CPA funds, same thing, purchase of existing buildings and absolutely deed restricted for affordable housing. And I'll stop there and give other people a chance to talk. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Beth. David?
I think that we really need to invest physically in building new housing development near public transit. I think for both climate change reasons and to sort of, support our businesses and the walkability of our town, being less car dependent and more focused on public transit presents a lot of opportunities that we need to take. And so I think focusing on our existing bus and subway locations when we're building housing can really help with that. I think that also using the Housing Trust Fund to support new construction, however that's best done, I think could provide a lot of opportunities for doing more units efficiently. I feel like a lot of the challenges of the current plan is that a lot of people are sort of in favor of affordable housing in theory, but like specific proposals often draw a lot of opposition. And so I feel like that just creates some challenges for things changing. But I think the reality is, our town's changing whether we want it to or not. And it's, we need to change it in positive ways and not just let everything just get more expensive and not build units that let people stay here and let us become more diverse. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'm trying to see who put their hand up first. So I think Rachel.
No, I already.
Okay. Oh, sorry, your hand's still up. Okay, and you're good. Wendy.
Hi. So I want to echo the comment about the Housing Trust Fund, and I feel like the Arlington Housing Corporation has been doing a lot of development of new units, and I just feel like they've been more effective as a nonprofit than I think the Housing Authority as a government agency has been. So I think the Housing Authority could be doing more, and they do own a lot of land, so that is a possibility. But I just feel like the purchasing of existing buildings and deed restricting would be a good way. And another place I'd really like to see some funding is developing alternative housing types that would make sense in Arlington. And it seems that so much of the development, the residential development, is large single family homes. And if there could be some alternative types that were sponsored by the town or, basically developed by the town in terms of a type of housing, then more of that type could be built. So I'd like to see some of that.
Great, thank you. Laura? Or did Laura, you already went?
Nope.
Oh,
I
great.
didn't, sorry, I just had something drop on me. So I'm going to address number 2. I agree with some of the other people. I'd really like to see the Housing Trust Fund and CPA funds capitalized to create more affordable housing opportunities, whether that's building new housing or redeveloping existing units. I am a reporter, and I've actually been looking a lot into this. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but the Community Preservation Act, it's been reported on before. A lot of communities that have passed it, and especially those that are affluent white majority like Arlington, there's been a phenomenon where they're not utilizing the funds to create affordable housing at all compared to open space or historic preservation. And it's actually been exacerbating inequities and segregations in Massachusetts, and particularly the Boston metro area. So I would actually like to see Arlington go against that trend, which unfortunately it seems like when I looked up the CPA funds, even in recent years, there were just a year, I think last year, 0 funds were spent of CPA on affordable housing. So that money just went unclaimed. There's also, they could utilize those funds to expand vouchers and raise payment standards so more people could actually use them here in Arlington. Right now, Arlington's too expensive for voucher holders to actually be in Arlington usually, unless they're already in affordable housing, which kind of goes against how vouchers were supposed to work. They were actually created by the federal government so that people could integrate into neighborhoods, not be segregated, but because communities have such high incomes like Arlington, their AMI is too high, people can't use them here and they get priced out. And those people are more likely to be people of color, women, disabled people. So the CPA could be an opportunity to actually use that, and especially to use it for lower income people as well.
Thank you, Laura. And Kelda, I'm going to call on you next, but I'm just going to read out some comments in the chat. Alex said, as part of the plan, we should have a thorough investigation on how to maximize the number of affordable housing units that can be created under our inclusionary zoning bylaw and what groups of changes to our bylaws might be in order. And Beth also said, last year, HCA stated that they were busy with existing projects. I think that more money rolled over a big sports field project this year. Okay, so Kelda, I see your hand is up.
Sorry, I have Big Bad Wolf behind me, so if it's loud, 2.5. Big Bad Wolf, fine. So I wanted to chime in because I think a lot of people don't know the thing that a big barrier is mental, and I know it's physical, where physically can we support new housing development, but I think that actually the barriers that we need to take down are mental. Vouchers, making them, like Laura said, making it to where people can use them. I think that the start to a physical is to actually open the mindset. I also think that people need to know what affordable housing is, and we need more transparency, both in the Housing Authority and also in the Housing Corporation of Arlington, which are the only 2 affordable housing resources. I went to apply for the housing lottery for their current affordable development. For those who don't know, we're in emergency housing assistance and scattered site shelter right now. We meet the 30% AMI, local preference, and everything. But since we're so low income, we don't have a lease in our name or utilities in our name, and that's what's required to have an application for local preference. Anybody at 30% AMI in the area is going to at least be doubled up. They're probably not going to have a lease, or they can't afford to have utilities in their name. So I think that people need to know it. There needs to be transparency, because people think that there are affordable housing resources that actually are not attainable and don't exist. So I think that if people knew what's there and how those resources could better be used, if the organizations were actually efficient and transparent, it would be a big step to getting the physical aspect.
Kelda, I'm just going to repeat what I heard, just because I think there were some audio issues, but that you said that there just needs to be more transparency about affordable housing resources and options that are currently available. If I got that correct?
Yes, there needs to be more transparency and options as to what's currently available, and people need to be aware of the process, how it works, how it doesn't work. Like I said, because people think that we have priority, that we should be able to apply for this housing lottery by housing corporations, and we're not eligible because we're too low, because we can't afford to have a lease in our name, so we're excluded. And these are exclusionary practices that obviously this is just one example of. So I think we need to take some mental barriers down, and I think transparency is the way to that, yes.
Great, thank you, Kelda. I think Winnell, you have your.
Thank you. Hi. I would love to see attention paid to one of the larger parts of our population, which is our aging population. And I think not just in terms of senior housing, but in terms of options for older people, such as co-housing, which is getting a lot of positive support and interest lately. I don't know if everybody on this call is aware of this, but the Mugar project has undergone a tremendous transformation lately, and it is now going to be focused on senior independent and assisted living, which completely changes my opinion about this project. And it would be great to think that we could have a greater variety of housing for people as they age, to allow them to stay in town. So that would be my hope.
Great, thank you. Laura, is your hand up again, or?
No.
Okay. Any other comments right now about housing challenges, either based off of these questions or based off other housing challenges that you would like to bring up? And I think in the chat, Alex said, CPA is limited by the applications it gets. How can we spur more applications? And I see Beth said, wow, Mugar, I hope they embrace the green space and especially the bike trail rather than ignoring it and putting parking and maintenance alongside. Any comments on any of that? Or again,
I just want to say really quick about CPA. When I was doing my investigations, there were a couple places that were cited as exemplary, and it was because like their housing authority every year prioritized putting in for money to either expand vouchers or build more affordable housing or redevelop more affordable housing or improve the affordable housing they already have. Like they have a priority that every single year they have to put in for X amount of money. I think one was Amherst Housing Authority and the other is next door in Cambridge, that they are the two places that were cited that every year they've made it a priority to apply for affordable housing, new affordable housing. I mean, Cambridge is light years ahead of us with affordable housing. We're almost dead last in the Boston metro area. We're second to last of all our neighbors. And I think Cambridge is at 15%. So they've not only met the 10%, but they've gone above. So I think if we could urge our AHA and HCA to actually prioritize putting in for grants every year, or even having an alternative, starting a new community land trust that also puts in to make these funds be used as they were intended on that aspect. that would be a good start.
Great, thank you, Laura. And I see there's some discussion in the chat about a governor appointee position opening for both the Arlington Housing Authority and the Redevelopment Board. And then Jenny says that our current plan is a study that says work with the Community Preservation Committee to encourage continued allocation of greater than the state mandate minimum of 10% annual to the CPA funds revenues to the community housing initiatives. So just as we go along.
Am I in a, hi, this is Lori Leahy. I'm
Yes.
wondering, am I in a breakout room now?
You're not. I am about to
Okay.
move everyone in.
Oh, Jeff, I'll just get out.
Oh, shoot.
Kelly, I was put in one with Jeff.
Oh, no, I actually, shoot, I should have, I just moved you out of,
Oh.
Can you, do you still have the option to go back into room 4 or no?
Yes, I can.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Now we have one.
Yay. Sorry about that. Tech issues, you know. Okay. Thank you for, this is our last breakout session. I see some familiar faces that I've seen before and some new faces. So this breakout, my name's Lena. For those who haven't had me yet, I'm a staff planner with Horsley Witten Group. Our last breakout session is about opportunities for consensus. So what I'm gonna do is I will share my screen again. Make sure everyone can see that. Yes. So I will put all of the questions up just so we have them. And again, these are not questions that if you have another idea about opportunities for consensus that are not related to these 3 questions, feel free to also bring those up. These are mostly just starting point questions. And again, to contribute, please either just raise your hand if you're on video or use the raise your hand button. So I'll read out the 3 questions and we can get started. Okay. What steps would help bring community together around provision of affordable housing? What could most people agree on? 2, how can the town balance concerns about housing needs and natural resource protection? And 3, how can the town balance concerns about housing need and preserving Arlington's built environment? Again, these are starting off, if you want to respond to a specific question, you're welcome to do that, or all of them. Or if you have another topic about, again, opportunities for consensus, you're welcome to also bring that up at this time. Elizabeth.
Sorry, I'm a bit confused by the last question. I can wait, or you can clarify it for me now.
Happy to clarify it for you now. So how can the town balance concerns about housing need and preserving Arlington's built environment? It's kind of sometimes it's used for, sometimes it's kind of talking about how certain towns have a certain built aesthetic or of neighborhood character is another way for it that some people argue against adding certain types of housing or development because it will change the look of Arlington's current built environment.
Okay,
so that
just wanted to make that understood. Okay.
Yep, okay. Anyone would like to start off? Again, either raise your hand with your camera or Alex?
So I suspect that there is broad agreement that we need more affordable housing. I would also posit that it's unlikely we're going to get to consensus on how to achieve that and on housing beyond, deeded affordable housing at some percent of AMI.
Thank you, Alex. Anyone else want to jump in about opportunities for consensus? Adam?
Yes, so the third question about balancing needs, I guess I wanted to share that when I talk to people about, proposed projects and where things are going, I hear a lot of enthusiasm when the conversation is about what we're going to get. More stores, vibrant streetscape, that whole business, and a lot of fear and uncertainty when people start to think about how it's going to look. And one thing I'd like the town to look at are design standards with more teeth than just the sort of optional, highly suggested stuff. That we might want to specify, you know, architectural standards in terms of quality of build, not in terms of, you know, there's going to be a Palladian window here or anything like that, but quality of materials, so that when we get the new stuff, it looks good.
Great, thank you, Adam. Patricia, I think you have your hand raised.
Thank you. Yes, actually, my husband had his hand raised before I did. But thank you for the invitation to speak. I would like to point out that I think the best way for us to achieve affordable housing is for the town to do a concerted effort. I mean an effort, not something that Ali Carter would think isn't really in her purview, or neither would any of the others. They don't seem to think very much it is in her purview. So I think that the town needs to do a very concerted effort to find out what apartment buildings in town they can help to buy for renovation before they are demolished by the speculative developers who are roaming around at will, knowing that Arlington is willing to bypass its zoning bylaws and other safeguards, and they are just hoping to become very rich over Arlington's lack of standards of interest in affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Anyone else, again, about these three questions or anything else about opportunities for consensus? Elizabeth.
Yeah, I think maybe on a personal level, we can address this problem, you know, more constructively. I think if people stop thinking about affordable housing as units and those people, or, you know, other people or other types of housing, and start thinking about it in terms of just being affordable, and being, yeah, everything else being just like normal people think of things. You know, it's not like, I just don't understand the mentality of thinking about people who live in affordable housing as being others, and thinking about affordable housing units as being other types of housing. They don't have to be. And when it starts to be personal, that's when I think, you know, maybe we can bring people together to understand it and to really embrace it.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Julie, I see your hand is up.
I think that it would be great if we could change the word affordable to attainable, because a lot of people can't reach that attainability. So I think when people hear the word affordable, it just rings true to low income, or they can't afford it, etc. And as you notice around Arlington, all of the affordable neighborhoods are, well, not all of them, sort of tucked away. Right? You know, they're tucked away out of the mainstream. They're not integrated. There's no integration. So it's, you know, and selling houses, once in a while, you do get the buyer who says no to a certain school district because of the area of, there's different housing in the area. I mean, it's not a lot, and then you have to educate them, etc. But I do think just swapping out those two words, and also when it comes time to do attainable housing units, put them in neighborhoods where there isn't any. Put them, you know, more integration.
Great, thank you, Julie. I see Alex, you have your hand up.
So I think if we were to take some steps around education, I mean, this is a complicated question and has a lot of different facets. And education sessions on the challenges of developing affordable housing, on the economics of it, on the funding sources, on just how complicated it is, and in general to develop housing, and also around the history of zoning, both with our town specifically and with the region and the nation in general, and how that has worked, how we have gotten here as a town. I think it also might be eye-opening to understand that a bunch of apartment buildings in town that are quasi-affordable, couldn't be built under today's zoning. And that a lot of what some of us really like about Arlington could not be built today. And why it is that we have zoning that does not reflect these things that we like about the town.
Great, thank you, Alex. Patricia?
Thank you. Yes. As regards the switch from affordable to attainable, I think there's a limit to what we can do with words. Words are relatively unimportant compared to the meanings that they convey. And the people are more familiar with one word, why switch to another, which may mean very little to them. As regard Alex Vignal's approach, I think you have to remember that renovating an existing building is much, much less expensive than building new. And it causes very little increase in taxes and whatnot. Alex's suggestions would be great for developers, absolutely great. And I don't want our children or anybody else educated to think that we should be supporting, enriching speculators and ignoring the needs of those who already live here and would like to stay here and may need services because they're getting older, that could be well provided if they can stay in their apartments. I certainly don't want Alex Vignal's education ideas promulgated in this community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Patricia. I think Karen, I might have seen your hand up, or no? Okay. Any other topic about opportunities for consensus on these questions? Claire. Oh, I think you're on mute, Claire.
I echo the comments of the previous speakers, and building on what Patricia said, there are many apartment buildings here that are well built. They're sturdy, they're wonderful structures. And I could see how possibly the housing authority or the housing corporation could possibly buy some of them. There would be a diverse group of people living in these apartment buildings, and some of them could be, a percentage of them could be, rather than having something torn down or rebuilt or new housing built, the existing structures could be used for attainable housing with assistance from the town, or possibly through the housing corporation or the housing authority. It's something I've thought about for quite a while. It was so nice to hear that mentioned, that people are thinking along those lines too. And education and attitude, a changed attitude and education, and people working together with positive mutual regard, mutual respect.
Thank you, Claire. Any other comments, again, about these questions? Or since this is the last breakout group of the evening, or I think we have two hand raised. Karen?
Thanks.
Yep.
I really like the way these questions are phrased, because they do point to the fact that we have to maintain some flexibility on the things that we value, because we can't draw lines in the sand around one if we can't get the other. And I do think that's what's happening in Arlington, is we're drawing lines around in the sand around, sorry about my dogs, lots of things. So I like the way this is phrased. Further to the point of flexibility, I think, as I said before, I think there are some opportunities in our existing buildings to purchase those buildings and obtain subsidies to be able to make those units potentially permanently affordable. But there are risks associated with that. For example, those subsidies will be targeted at people below a certain income level. And some of the people at higher income levels might not be eligible for those. So we may need to really keep the flexibility to think about mixed income levels. We also may face feasibility issues for small buildings because it is very difficult to aggregate subsidies for small buildings. And so if someone were to buy a 6 or an 8 or even a 10 or 12 unit building, it's very difficult to justify the cost of going and getting all those subsidies. So you may need to really think about someone could use those structures or even those sites to build a different structure. It may not be more expensive to do that in certain circumstances. So I urge everybody to kind of keep an open mind. We need to stop drawing lines in the sand and find ways that we can solve problems together to get to the goal of building affordable housing.
Thank you, Karen. Any other? Patricia, is your hand up again, or is it still? Okay, yes.
Yes, it is. Yes, of course, what Karen says. Thank you, Karen, for your comments. But flexibility has been used in this town already very much against the interests of those who are monitoring the speculation that is occurring in town. Flexibility has been used to enable those developers who are most speculative. And it's a word we have to be very careful of when we hear planners bandying around. Flexibility is usually used to help find loopholes and to enrich developers. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Any other, Elizabeth, yes.
Sorry, I just wanted to bring up the second question about the natural resources protection. I think it is important to be cognizant of you know, how little natural open space we have in this town and how much we value the open space that we have that's public. But we also need to be thinking, as we are, about you know, the street trees, you know, all of our yards, and doing what we can to protect the natural parts of the town as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I think because we're coming up with in the last few minutes again about these questions, or at this point, if you have any other comments about the topics that have been covered tonight, with the needs for housing in Arlington, the challenges or the opportunities for consensus. Julie.
So I want to just emphasize education, as a few people already have. That's really important. So the more education, obviously, the better. And earlier in one of the other breakout sessions, someone had mentioned millennials, and I know that I tend to think of seniors because, you know, they've lived a long time and maybe had a home for 40 years in Arlington, and now they're in another season of their life, so they're making decisions as well. But I think we ought to focus as well on millennials who are just getting into the workforce, might want to stay here. Their accessibility to Boston, maybe they grew up here and they'd love to raise their kids here. So, and I don't think that they've really been, I don't think their voice has been heard.
Great, so. Thank you. Sorry, we'll be closing in about 10 seconds, the breakout room, so we'll be all put back. But thank you for this great discussion, and I'll see you in the bigger room in a second.
Okay, I think everyone's back. So I'm going to hand this back over to Judy and Alexis. Oh, Judy, you're on mute.
No.
Oh, sorry.
I just saw it. Alexis, do you want to bring the slides up again?
Sure
Super.
thing.
Let's go down to where we are. Okay, so next steps. Next steps are simply this. We have a lot of work to do. We're continuing to do research and looking at, you know, market data and demographic data, and we have more talking to do, you know, with people. I think that sort of toward the end of the summer, we'll be producing kind of a draft of the needs assessment, kind of with everything that we learned, both from you folks this evening, from our research, from other kind of conversations with the community. If you go to the timeline, Alexis, that would probably help.
Sure. Sorry, I was having
it's fine.
Technical difficulties.
Well, I know I had my share tonight too. So this again is the timeline. I know you saw this before. There is this discussion coming, a community conversation sponsored by your Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Office on fair housing that's coming up on July 13th. And you may want to check the town website if you're interested to find out about that event. From our point of view, it's really working on this needs assessment over the summer and developing what we think are plausible goals to submit to the planning department for discussion with the Housing Plan Implementation Committee. Around in September, there will be another community engagement forum to kind of vet the things that we think, that we found, that we are thinking might make sense for this plan. There will be, another forum when the housing plan is essentially in all draft form. And then eventually what happens toward the end of the fall is that the plan is presented to the Arlington Redevelopment Board and the Select Board, because both those boards have to approve the plan in order for the plan to be submitted to the Department of Housing and Community Development. So there's quite a bit, left to do here. We're certainly not done yet. And Kelly, did you have something that you were trying to add up there? I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. There will be the town has a webpage sort of for this project. And one of the things, if you're interested, if you have more that you want to say to us that you didn't get a chance to say this evening, if you go to that page, there will be a link to a Google form that will take you to the same questions you saw in the discussion, the breakout sessions tonight. And you will be able to tell us more that, if you have thoughts after this meeting that perhaps you didn't get a chance to present, or that you've thought about, sometimes when I walk away from a discussion, I think, why didn't I say that? Well, if you have a why didn't I say that moment, you'll be able to kind of say it in that Google form, and we will get those comments. So that's really where we are and kind of where we're going. And I think really that's it, Alexis, if you want to take us to the final slide here. We want to thank you for participating. Jenny, or Kelly, do you want to kind of close out, or are we just going to sign off at this point and say thank you very much?
Jenny, I'm just happy to close out. I did post a link to the Housing Plan Implementation Committee website in the chat. We will also be following up shortly with a press release, a link to the recording, and the slides, which will all be posted on the Housing Plan Implementation Committee website. Jenny can add to this if she wants to, but I just want to thank everyone for taking the time to come out, and I hope everyone felt like they had a productive discussion. I'm really looking forward to hearing a summary of everything that was discussed. Jenny?
Sure. Thank you, everybody, for participating. This is really the beginning of the process, and we would love to hear any feedback from you. That's the point of participating with the Google form or in any other medium that you would like to communicate with us, so that we can understand a little bit more about your ideas for the plan as it's evolving and developing. The timeline and all of the other materials, as Kelly and others have noted, is on the website. We are going to have a summary of the entire meeting, as well as the recording and any other report outs posted and available hopefully early next week. And we'll be looking forward to following up with you. I know that there are many, many more voices in Arlington who would be wonderful to participate in this plan. If you know somebody else, how about everybody in this meeting, please share this information with 5, 10, 15, as many people as possible to get them to participate and be part of this process. And if there are other people who you'd like to bring in, just let us know. We'd be happy to follow up. We really appreciate your time tonight and your energy. And I think that's all. Thank you very much.
Oh, Jennifer, yes, feel free to share that. I see your question about filling out the form. Yes, there's a direct question about if you attended the meeting or not. I'm sorry, Jenny, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just want to make sure that that was addressed, that can be shared with anybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good night, everybody.